A lot of royal watchers were surprised, to say the least, to see Meghan Markle pop up at the Balenciaga fashion show. Now, Rebecca, this was a significant moment for Meghan, wasn't it? Significant appearance.
It was a significant moment.
Paris, the city of lights, glamour, and untouchable power, turned into the city of chaos overnight. Under the blinding camera flashes and the echo of Balenciaga's metallic runway, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex herself, watched her perfect image crumble right before everyone's eyes. What was supposed to be a moment of triumph quickly twisted into something no one could have imagined. The air was electric, the crowd packed with fashion royalty, and all eyes locked on Meghan as she made her grand return to Europe's fashion scene. Her entrance had the confidence of a queen reclaiming her throne. Cameras snapping, whispers spreading, fans screaming her name. It was supposed to be her redemption arc.
Meghan Markle, okay? The disaster tourist is back with a vengeance. She was in Paris over the weekend attending the Balenciaga fashion.
But then came the unraveling. What looked like a routine appearance soon turned into a scene so tense that even the front row elites couldn't hide their shock. This wasn't just a wardrobe malfunction or a bad angle. It was something much deeper, something raw and painfully real. Paris had set the stage for Meghan's comeback, but instead, it became the stage for one of the most talked about public meltdowns in celebrity history. And the worst part? It all unfolded in real time for millions to witness. Ever since Meghan Markle stepped away from royal duties, every move she made screamed one word: comeback. The hair, flawless and sleek. The gown, custom-made, dripping in shimmer beneath the blinding flashbulbs. When she strutted onto that Paris carpet, she looked like a woman determined to take back her story, to show the world she was still that girl. And wow, did she plan this moment down to the last detail. Sources say Meghan had been quietly preparing this surprise Paris Fashion Week appearance for months. Behind the scenes, she saw it as her shot at a grand European redemption after her lukewarm response in the States, her archetypes wine launch fizzling, and those disappointing Netflix projects that barely made a dent. Paris wasn't just another trip. It was supposed to be her rebirth, her rebranding, her second coronation in couture. The message was crystal clear. Meghan Markle wasn't backing down. She was stepping back into the global spotlight, cloaked in Balenciaga confidence and armed with that signature poise. But fate had a darker twist waiting for her. Somewhere between the champagne toasts, the flashing lights, and the polite smiles, something in her perfectly built image began to crack. It started small. A forced grin, glassy eyes, a flicker of discomfort that could have passed as exhaustion. But to those watching closely, it was the first sign of a storm building behind that perfect smile. Then came the moment that froze the entire internet. As the cameras rolled during the live Balenciaga broadcast, Meghan's mask of composure finally cracked. Her jaw tightened, her hands trembled, and she leaned toward her handler, whispering something so faint the microphones couldn't catch it, before suddenly turning away. Seconds later, it happened. Meghan Markle was crying on camera. The crowd didn't know how to react, and within minutes, that footage was everywhere. TikTok went insane. Twitter, or X, blew up with millions of views, and every gossip outlet, from TMZ to Daily Mail, plastered the same headline: Meghan Markle breaks down at Balenciaga Paris. It was an emotional collapse, raw and unfiltered, caught live for the whole world to see. But what really drove her to that breaking point? Let's rewind. Sources close to the event are now describing a behind-the-scenes drama that feels straight out of a movie. According to insiders, tension had been bubbling for hours before the show even started. Meghan's team reportedly hyped her invitation as ultra-exclusive, but the truth? It wasn't nearly as elite as she believed. Several A-list names, real heavyweights in fashion and Hollywood, were seated ahead of her, while Meghan's placement didn't exactly scream VIP. That quiet snub, combined with the whispers backstage, might have been the spark that lit the meltdown seen around the world. From Bella Hadid to Dua Lipa, the star power was front and center. Both reportedly snagged priority seating right by the runway's edge. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, was placed several rows back, almost swallowed by the crowd. One insider spilled to page 6. She expected front-row treatment. She thought she'd be seated beside the creative director, or at least surrounded by major Hollywood names, but she wasn't even included in the main press lineup.
She's swanning around like she's Queen Cersei in Game of Thrones and…
Ouch! That kind of downgrade hits hard, especially for someone used to global attention, and things only went downhill from there. Multiple stylists and influencers at the event were allegedly overheard whispering about her outfit, calling it off-theme and too heavy for Balenciaga's sleek, minimalist style. You could practically feel the shade in the air as she walked by, the kind of quiet snickering that cuts deeper than any headline. But the ultimate sting came from Balenciaga's own creative director, Demna. While he was seen greeting A-list VIPs with warm hugs and cheek kisses, Meghan reportedly got nothing more than a polite nod. No warmth, no conversation, just distance. The tension was thick enough to slice through. According to several eyewitnesses, Meghan looked uneasy the entire evening. One journalist seated nearby claimed she kept checking her phone, probably waiting for the coverage to go live. And then came the breaking point. Midway through the show, massive LED screens began playing a dramatic visual montage, a celebration of Balenciaga's rebellious, avant-garde history. And that's when everything changed. The giant screens filled the venue with Balenciaga's trademark drama, a powerful montage blending archival runway clips with images of women who'd redefined rebellion in fashion history. The crowd was captivated, phones raised, flashes everywhere. But then, something no one expected flickered across the screen. For a split second, the montage showed a photo of Meghan and Prince Harry leaving Buckingham Palace back in 2020. Then came another, a tabloid headline reading, "Duchess divides opinion." And before anyone could process it, the screen cut to a still from her explosive Oprah interview, the one that practically shook the royal family. The image lingered just long enough for the audience to gasp, and whispers rippled through the room. People looked around in disbelief. Was this a direct jab? Was Balenciaga trolling her? Insiders later explained the segment was meant to celebrate cultural disruptors, showing how fame, rebellion, and controversy often intertwine. Meghan's inclusion was supposed to be symbolic, not shady, but the damage was already done. Because right there, in front of the entire fashion world, Meghan Markle froze. Her face dropped, the practiced smile vanished, and her composure shattered in real time. Every camera lens caught the shift, the humiliation, the disbelief, the firestorm building behind her eyes. She leaned toward her publicist, whispering something that lip readers later claimed looked like, "Turn it off." Seconds later came the moment burned into everyone's memory, Meghan turning away as tears rolled down her face under the flashing lights of Paris Fashion Week. One nearby camera operator caught everything. Every tear, every whisper, every second of Meghan's breaking point. Within minutes, the footage flooded social media, and the internet absolutely exploded. Some fans rushed to defend her, saying it was a rare glimpse of vulnerability, a human moment in a cruel world of judgment. But others? They were ruthless. Comment sections turned savage. One viral post racked up millions of views with the line, "Paris doesn't do pity. She came to conquer the runway, but ended up crying on it. Ouch." Fashion critics quickly jumped in, dissecting every angle. Many pointed out that Balenciaga's choice to include Meghan's image reportedly wasn't coordinated with her PR team, suggesting she might have felt blindsided, humiliated even. But others weren't buying the sympathy, noting that Meghan had spent years crafting her own image around reclaiming her story. Seeing herself used without permission inside someone else's narrative might have been the cruelest twist of all. Backstage, witnesses described pure chaos. One insider said Meghan locked herself in a private dressing suite for nearly 20 minutes. Staff members allegedly heard muffled sobs, followed by a string of tense phone calls. A security guard was overheard muttering, "She's done? She's leaving." And true enough, before the final model even hit the runway, Meghan Markle was gone. She reportedly slipped out the back entrance, head down, flanked by 2 guards and her visibly shaken assistant. Cameras caught every second of her quiet escape through the shadows of the Balenciaga venue, an exit that, ironically, became the most viral runway moment of the entire Paris Fashion Week. The clip of Meghan leaving, eyes red, mascara smudged, clutching her phone like a lifeline, instantly became the image of the night. Within hours, it spread across every platform, amassing over 20 million views and counting. And of course, the internet did what it always does best. It theorized. Some fans swore she broke down over that Balenciaga montage. Others claimed it was pure humiliation from being snubbed by the fashion elite. But whispers from Paris insiders hinted at something far deeper. A well-connected journalist from Le Monde reported that Meghan was overheard arguing on the phone before the show even began. Something about Netflix contracts, image rights, and control over unreleased footage. If that's true, then Paris Fashion Week wasn't just another event gone wrong. It was the final straw after months of mounting stress, power struggles, and emotional exhaustion. Whatever the cause, one thing is undeniable. Paris didn't see the Duchess. It didn't see the influencer, the strategist, or the polished public figure. It saw Meghan, the person, raw and exposed under the weight of her own empire. For the first time, her carefully built image slipped, revealing the exhaustion, the fear, and the heartbreak hiding underneath that perfect smile. And maybe that's what made this moment so haunting. It wasn't just one bad night. It was the collapse of 1,000 tiny cracks, finally breaking open under the flashing lights of Paris. The fading brand deals, the skeptical press, the growing whispers in both Hollywood and royal circles. It all started to feel like the sparkle was slipping away. By sunrise, every major outlet across the globe was running the same haunting footage, just with different spins. "Tears in Paris," screamed one. "Meghan Markle's emotional breakdown shocks Fashion Week," shouted another. Then came Balenciaga Backlash. Was Meghan blindsided on the runway? And a Duchess unraveled. Meghan's pain caught live on camera. Her PR team jumped into damage control mode within hours, rushing to frame it as a deeply emotional reaction to being featured as a symbolic cultural icon. But the public wasn't fooled, because no amount of spin could hide what the cameras had already captured. The trembling lip, the blurred mascara, the desperate exit through the side door. That was real. That was raw. And for once, it wasn't the Meghan Markle who'd mastered the art of image control. It was the woman behind it, struggling to hold it all together. This was the same Duchess who once proudly told the world she was thriving, not surviving. But that night in Paris, the facade cracked, and for the first time in years, she looked like someone barely staying afloat. And as the footage replayed endlessly across timelines, one silence stood out the loudest: Harry's. No words, no statement, no defense, just silence echoing from Montecito. By morning, Paris had moved on to the next headline, but the internet hadn't. That 30-second clip of Meghan Markle crying at Balenciaga had become a full-blown global spectacle, one that no royal title could ever outrun. Memes, slow-motion edits, dramatic piano music overlays. It was everywhere. Every social media feed, every gossip reel, every trending page was drowning in the same scene. Meghan Markle turning away, wiping her tears as the runway lights glittered around her like shards of broken glass. And if anyone thought her team could quietly bury the footage, think again. Within hours, PR insiders described the atmosphere inside Meghan's Montecito mansion as absolute panic. One source close to her team told reporters she was furious. She wanted that clip taken down immediately, but there was one big problem. Balenciaga owned the broadcast rights. The show had been live-streamed to millions across the globe, instantly archived, clipped, and reposted on every major platform. The genie was out of the bottle, and there was no putting it back in. Meanwhile, the media smelled blood. A full-blown feeding frenzy erupted overnight. Some tabloids labeled it a public meltdown, while others framed it as a rare glimpse of real emotion. But let's be real, most were merciless, especially the British press. The Sun splashed a headline that read, "Tears, Tantrums, and Tension."
The Balenciaga creative director, let's look at this.
Meghan's Paris breakdown stuns the fashion elite. And the Daily Mail? They went for the jugular, analyzing every movement. The trembling lip, the clenched chest, the hasty exit. Nothing escaped scrutiny. It was brutal. The same fashion moment Meghan hoped would rebuild her image had now turned into her biggest PR nightmare. And the most ironic twist? Even Balenciaga's creative director reportedly looked stunned backstage, caught whispering something that left everyone wondering. Had this entire meltdown just overshadowed his own runway show? One commentator summed it up perfectly. For a woman who built her empire on image control, losing composure in Paris was like a general dropping her sword mid-battle. Brutal, but accurate. And yet, what came next was even darker than the headlines. Behind the scenes, whispers started flying that the Balenciaga team wasn't exactly sympathetic. In fact, they were furious. According to multiple sources, Meghan's tearful exit was seen as a disruption, not a moment of humanity. One insider bluntly stated, Balenciaga wanted elegance, not emotion. They didn't invite her to make a scene. That single line spread like wildfire among fashion insiders, painting Meghan as the guest who turned couture into chaos. And if that wasn't enough, videos began surfacing of other attendees mocking her as she left. One viral TikTok, filmed by someone seated near the runway, showed two influencers laughing and whispering, "She's crying again. Over what now?" The clip hit millions of views in hours. The internet was eating it up, and Meghan's team knew they had to act fast. By midnight, her inner circle had gone into full spin mode. A spokesperson released a perfectly worded statement that read, "The Duchess of Sussex was deeply moved by Balenciaga's tribute to women who've endured public scrutiny. The emotional moment reflected her compassion and connection to the message of resilience and empowerment. It was polished, diplomatic, and designed to sound powerful. But for most people watching, it only made the situation look even more desperate. Because at that point, no amount of PR gloss could hide what Paris had already witnessed. Meghan Markle cracking under pressure, live for the world to see. The statement was polished, predictable, and almost too perfect, and the public wasn't buying a single word of it. Comment sections erupted with accusations that Meghan was once again trying to spin a meltdown into a moment of empowerment. Critics called it textbook PR damage control, pointing out how words like resilience and empowerment sounded more like marketing buzzwords than actual emotion. It felt rehearsed, robotic, and painfully out of touch. And social media, it went savage. Thousands piled on, calling out the irony of it all. How Meghan, who'd spent years building an image of grace under pressure, had completely fallen apart the moment the spotlight turned harsh. One viral tweet captured the sentiment perfectly. She wanted Paris to remember her as a fashion icon. Instead, they'll remember the tears. The post hit millions of views within hours. And the replies were even harsher. But beneath the flashy headlines and the cold internet commentary, there was still a human being at the center of it all. Insiders close to Meghan said she was devastated by how fast the story spiraled out of control. What was meant to be her grand reintroduction to European society had turned into a public spectacle she couldn't escape. A source from her inner circle reportedly told People magazine, "She felt completely humiliated. It wasn't supposed to go like this, and that's the part that stung most." The realization that in her biggest attempt to reclaim power, she ended up losing the very control she built her empire on. Meghan truly believed she'd rebuilt enough goodwill to be welcomed back into the world of high society. But Paris proved otherwise. That night was a brutal reminder that public opinion about her remains deeply divided. Even among the Royal Watch community, reactions couldn't have been more split. Some fans actually defended her, saying the emotional moment showed she was human after all. "Maybe she's just tired," one user wrote. Another added, "Anyone would crack after years of being picked apart by the media." For a brief moment, there was empathy. Quiet, cautious, but real. Yet the majority saw it through a colder lens. To them, this wasn't a moment of vulnerability. It was a crack in the armor. Proof that Meghan's once impenetrable confidence was finally showing fractures. They argued this wasn't just an emotional slip. It was the unraveling of a public image carefully built over years of control, precision, and strategy. But while Meghan was reportedly in her Paris hotel suite, trying to recover from the chaos, something far worse was erupting online. The internet had turned her tears into a conspiracy theory. Some users began suggesting the breakdown was staged, a PR stunt to win sympathy and shift the narrative. Threads and TikToks popped up analyzing every frame of the video, claiming the camera angle was too perfect, the timing too convenient, and the rapid PR response suspiciously fast. What started as a breakdown on the runway had now morphed into a digital circus, and Meghan Markle was, once again, at the center of a storm she couldn't control. But not everyone thought Meghan staged it. Some believed the complete opposite. A growing number of insiders began whispering that she'd been set up. According to this theory, Balenciaga knew exactly what they were doing when they included Meghan's image in that controversial montage. The goal? To provoke a reaction and get people talking. One French journalist even dropped a bombshell claim, alleging that a few producers from the fashion house had been overheard joking before the show, calling Meghan good publicity no matter what happens. If that's true, then the so-called tribute to cultural disruptors may have been a strategic move, one that used Meghan's controversy to amplify their own headlines. Whatever the real story, one thing was clear. The narrative had completely slipped from Meghan's control. And for someone who spent years meticulously managing every photo, quote, and headline, that loss of control was her worst nightmare. By the time she returned to California, the media firestorm hadn't cooled down. It had grown. American outlets picked up the scandal and twisted it further. Variety labeled it an emotional PR disaster, while the New York Post went for the jugular with Paris Fashion Week, Meghan Markle's comeback crumbles in real time. Ouch. Again. And as if things couldn't get more humiliating, reports soon surfaced that Balenciaga's own PR department had quietly begun to distance themselves. Meghan's name was removed from select press releases, and official photos featuring her mysteriously vanished from the brand's post-show media kit. The message couldn't have been louder. Meghan Markle was no longer part of the fashion narrative she came to reclaim. Even Balenciaga's official social media, usually quick to repost celebrity guests, went completely silent about Meghan. Not a single tag, not one photo, nothing. And that's when the real panic began. According to sources, Meghan's team had massive plans tied to this Paris appearance. A glossy Vogue feature, a new luxury brand collaboration, maybe even the launch of her next big public chapter. But all of it was suddenly frozen. No one wanted to associate with the chaos. Every deal, every photo shoot, every whispered partnership went cold overnight. The word inside fashion circles was simple: too risky. And while Meghan tried to contain the fallout in Paris, back home in California, Prince Harry was reportedly furious. Insiders claimed he'd warned her not to go, calling it too high profile, too unpredictable. But Meghan insisted, saying she had to remind the world who she was. Sadly, the world was reminded, just not the way she imagined. Now, back in Montecito, Meghan has reportedly gone quiet. Friends say she's taking time away from the spotlight, reassessing her public appearances, and avoiding major events for the foreseeable future. One insider described her as deeply shaken, realizing just how fragile her Hollywood image has become. Meanwhile, critics aren't holding back. Many are calling Paris the turning point, the moment her royal reputation and Hollywood ambition finally collided under the same blinding spotlight and crumbled together. Even Lady Colin Campbell weighed in, saying she spent years controlling narratives. Now the narratives are controlling her. And honestly, that might be the most accurate take yet, because Paris wasn't just a PR disaster. It was symbolic. It was the night Meghan Markle's two worlds finally collided, exposing the truth behind the image she fought so hard to protect. It was the night the mask finally slipped, the night the world saw the fragility behind the facade. Beneath all the ambition, luxury, and poise was exhaustion, fear, and a desperate need to hold on to control. Meghan went to Paris to prove she still had influence, power, and that signature royal grace. But instead, the city stripped all of that away, leaving her tear-streaked, exposed, and unmistakably human. Whether you adore her or can't stand her, one thing's undeniable. That moment will be replayed for years to come. Not because of what she wore, not because of who she sat beside, but because, for the first time ever, the Duchess who built an entire empire on image simply couldn't hold it together when the cameras rolled. Paris might have been the city of tears that night, but for Meghan Markle, it became something deeper. A mirror she couldn't look away from. A reflection of everything she gained, everything she lost, and everything she still tries to control. And trust me, this story is far from over. The world's still watching, and the fallout is only beginning. What do you think? Was Meghan unfairly ambushed, or did Paris simply expose the truth behind her brand? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.